A $100,000 deposit, once the golden ticket to owning a home in Britain, now feels like loose change in a market gone mad. Across the UK, prices soar faster than wages, lenders tighten their grip, and monthly payments bite harder than ever. Even buyers with six-figure savings find themselves outbid, outpriced, and overlooked. The dream of homeownership hasn't disappeared. It's just moved further out of reach. From London's relentless premiums to regional bidding wars, today's housing market proves one painful truth. Having the money no longer means having a chance. Here's why 100k isn't enough anymore. Number 1. Sky-high house. Prices shrink the power of 100k. The average UK house price has climbed far beyond what most buyers imagined just a few years ago. According to the Office for National Statistics, the national average property now costs around $285,000, while in London, it exceeds $500,000. This surge means that even a seemingly large deposit of $100,000 no longer stretches very far. A deposit that once could have covered nearly half the price of a typical home now barely secures a 20 to 25% share in many regions. Rising demand, supply shortages, and an influx of cash buyers have pushed prices higher, reshaping what used to be considered a strong starting point into a modest contribution. Behind this surge lies a deep imbalance between supply and demand. The UK has consistently failed to meet its annual house building targets, falling short by tens of thousands of new homes each year. As a result, competition for available properties has intensified. Buyers often bid above the asking price, and properties sell within days. A 100k deposit can lose its competitive edge when dozens of others offer more or waive contingencies. Even in towns once regarded as affordable, such as parts of Yorkshire or the Midlands, prices have accelerated, forcing first-time buyers to look further afield or settle for smaller, less desirable properties. Another challenge comes from global investment trends. International buyers view UK real estate as a stable asset, further fueling demand in key urban markets. Their cash-based purchases leave local buyers reliant on mortgages, struggling to compete. This situation transforms a 100k deposit from a position of strength into a mere entry ticket for negotiations. What once symbolized financial security now highlights the growing divide between property values and real household incomes, revealing why home ownership feels increasingly out of reach. Number 2. Regional variation and the London premium. The impact of a 100k deposit depends heavily on where you're trying to buy. In northern towns such as Liverpool, Leeds, or Newcastle, this amount might cover 30 to 40% of a typical property's price, allowing buyers access to reasonable mortgage rates and manageable monthly payments. However, shift the focus to London, Surrey, or Oxford, and the same deposit barely scratches the surface. With average property prices in London surpassing $520,000, a 100k deposit represents less than 20% of the purchase price, often not enough to meet lender affordability tests comfortably. This regional divide exposes how geography dictates the real value of your savings and determines whether that deposit opens doors or keeps them firmly closed. Part of this imbalance stems from wage inequality and concentrated economic opportunity. London and the South East attract professionals with higher salaries, but property inflation has outpaced even those incomes. Meanwhile, more affordable northern regions face slower wage growth, leaving potential buyers unable to borrow large amounts despite lower housing costs. A family in Manchester, for example, might find a semi-detached house for $260,000, while a similar property in London could exceed £500,000. The deposit's value fluctuates drastically, turning the dream of one nation housing into a postcode lottery. Transport links, job hubs, and university cities also fuel regional disparities. Areas within commuting distance of major employers or tech clusters experience relentless price pressure as people compete for limited stock. home buyers are often forced to trade accessibility for affordability, moving further from workplaces to stretch their deposits' reach. The result is longer commutes, reduced quality of life, and a generation priced out of the economic centres that drive national growth. The 100k deposit still holds weight, but its influence depends entirely on the coordinates of your ambitions. Number 3. Strict lender rules and high loan-to-value pressure. Even with a 100k deposit, securing a mortgage isn't as simple as it once was. UK lenders now operate under tougher affordability checks, assessing not only income but also spending habits, credit history, and future interest rate scenarios. A buyer with 100k may still face rejection if their income-to-loan ratio is too high or if they hold personal debts. The Financial Conduct Authority requires lenders to test whether borrowers could afford repayments if rates rise by several percentage points. This means many first-time buyers, even with solid deposits, struggle to pass these stress tests. The issue isn't just how much cash you have up front. It's whether your financial profile meets the rigid criteria that banks use to minimize risk. Loan-to-value, LTV ratios, also shape how much that deposit can do. For instance, if a property costs $500,000, a 100k deposit equates to an 80% LTV mortgage, once considered normal but now deemed high risk amid economic uncertainty. Lenders reserve their best interest rates for borrowers with 60% or lower LTV, meaning those who can put down much more than 100k gain far cheaper deals. Anyone borrowing above that threshold faces steeper rates, shorter terms, and stricter conditions. This shift makes the market feel tilted toward wealthier or dual-income buyers who can absorb these rising costs. Beyond affordability, lenders increasingly scrutinize job stability and sector volatility. Freelancers, gig workers, and small business owners find it harder to qualify, regardless of deposit size. With inflation pushing household expenses up, many banks have tightened limits on what they consider disposable income. The result is a paradox. While you may have saved an impressive six-figure deposit, mortgage providers might still view you as a financial risk, leaving your home ownership hopes stuck in limbo. Number 4. Hidden upfront costs that erode the deposit. Our 100k deposit sounds like a solid foundation, but the reality of hidden and unavoidable upfront costs quickly eats into that figure. Buying a home in the UK comes with layers of expenses that many first-time buyers underestimate. Stamp duty land tax, for example, can cost thousands depending on the property's price. A home worth $450,000 could attract around $7,500 in stamp duty alone. Add on legal fees, surveys, and valuation reports, and buyers can easily lose another $2,000, $3,000 before the purchase even completes. These costs don't add any value to the property itself. They simply drain liquidity from your savings, reducing the real impact of your deposit. Then come the logistical and setup expenses. Moving services, new furniture, painting, minor repairs, and utilities all demand cash immediately after purchase. It's not uncommon for new homeowners to spend an extra $5,000 to $10,000 just to make their property livable. When you add everything together, that 100k deposit might shrink to 85k or even 80k in real terms, cutting into your mortgage equity and potentially shifting you into a higher interest bracket. Financial advisors often recommend keeping at least 5 to 10% of your home budget aside for such costs, but in today's inflated market, few can afford that luxury. Even government schemes designed to help, like Help to Buy or shared ownership, involve administrative and maintenance fees that catch people off guard. Service charges in new build flats, for example, can add hundreds per month. These recurring costs don't just impact affordability, they reduce how much lenders are willing to approve. So while your deposit might look powerful on paper, the web of fees and extras quietly undermines its strength, turning what seemed like a confident start into a fragile financial stretch. Number 5. rising interest rates and expensive monthly payments. Over the past 2 years, UK mortgage rates have climbed to levels not seen in over a decade, reshaping what affordability truly means. The Bank of England's base rate, which hovered near zero during the pandemic, now sits above 5%, and most fixed-rate mortgages range between 5.5% and 6.5%. For buyers, that translates into dramatically higher monthly repayments, even if they've managed to save a six-figure deposit. A $400,000 mortgage that once cost around $200 per month at a 2% interest rate can now exceed $2,300 at today's rates. This doubling of costs makes many lenders cautious and pushes buyers to reconsider what they can realistically afford. The deposit may open the door, but the interest rates decide whether you can actually step inside. These soaring rates affect more than just new borrowers. They also ripple through the entire housing chain. Sellers who previously enjoyed quick sales now face slower markets as fewer buyers qualify for mortgages under tightened affordability models. Renters, unable to buy, stay put longer, adding pressure to the rental sector and pushing rents up even further. This cycle traps potential first-time buyers in expensive leases, reducing their ability to save for additional costs or rate fluctuations. The deposit, though valuable, becomes a smaller factor compared to the monthly outflow. Lenders use to gauge long-term stability. Another hidden effect lies in the psychology of borrowing. Buyers are now reluctant to take on large mortgages because of fears that rates might rise again. Banks, anticipating risk, prefer low loan-to-value clients, further sidelining those with just enough deposit to reach the threshold. The result is an affordability paradox. People may technically have the savings to buy, but the reality of modern interest rates forces them to step back, delaying ownership dreams indefinitely. Number 6. Supply shortages and ruthless competition. One of the biggest barriers to home ownership today is the chronic undersupply of housing across the UK. The government's annual target of building 300,000 new homes has not been met for years, with completions hovering closer to 230,000. This consistent shortfall has created fierce competition for available properties, especially in urban areas and commuter towns. A 100k deposit no longer guarantees leverage when multiple buyers are fighting for the same home. Sellers can choose all cash buyers or those willing to bid above the asking price, leaving mortgage-dependent buyers at a disadvantage despite their sizable savings. The deposit's strength fades quickly in a market where scarcity fuels bidding wars and emotional overpricing. High demand is also being driven by demographic and social shifts. The number of single-person households has risen sharply, increasing the need for more housing units per capita. At the same time, a growing population of renters, many of whom are now seeking to buy, has pushed demand into overdrive. Remote work has compounded the issue, as professionals migrate from cities to suburbs, competing for family-sized homes with gardens or office space. The ripple effect has been nationwide, turning once affordable towns into red-hot property zones. Even a six-figure deposit may fail to stand out when homes are selling within days and above listing prices. Adding to the problem, land availability and planning restrictions slow new development, keeping supply tight. Local councils face political pressure to limit large-scale building, while construction costs have risen due to material shortages and inflation. Together, these factors keep the housing pipeline clogged, ensuring that demand far exceeds supply. In this environment, your 100k deposit may feel substantial, but it's competing in a crowded arena where the rules favour speed, connections, and often sheer luck rather than financial preparation. Number 7. Wage growth. Falling behind property inflation. While property prices have surged over the past decade, UK wage growth has failed to keep pace, creating a widening affordability gap. According to the Office for National Statistics, Average earnings have risen by around 20% since 2015, but house prices have jumped by more than 55% during the same period. This means that even if someone has saved a 100k deposit, their income often isn't high enough to qualify for the mortgage needed to cover the rest. Lenders typically cap borrowing at 4 to 4.5 times annual income, so a household earning $60,000 can only borrow roughly $270,000. Combined with a 100k deposit, that only stretches to $370,000, well below the price of most homes in southern England. The result's a generation of buyers who are financially disciplined but still locked out. Even professionals in strong sectors, teachers, nurses, and mid-level managers, find that their income no longer buys what it used to. The cost of living crisis has compounded this problem, as higher energy bills, transportation costs, and inflation eat into take-home pay. As disposable income shrinks, lenders view applicants as higher risk, even when their deposit savings suggest stability. The relationship between earnings and property prices has become so distorted that owning a home now often depends on inherited wealth or family assistance, not financial independence. This mismatch between income and property inflation creates deeper social and economic consequences. Younger workers delay starting families or relocate to cheaper regions, straining local economies. Cities lose key workers who can't afford to live near their jobs, worsening labour shortages in essential sectors. The 100k deposit, while symbolically strong, can't bridge a gap that's fundamentally rooted in income inequality. Without wage growth that matches housing inflation, the deposit remains powerful in theory but powerless in practice. Number 8. High rent costs. Draining savings and mortgage eligibility. Across the UK, rents have reached record highs, making it nearly impossible for many people to save effectively, even those earning above average salaries. Data from Zoopla shows that the average rent has risen by over 8% year on year, with tenants now spending around 30-35% of their income on rent alone. In London, this figure often exceeds 50%. This relentless financial pressure means that saving up for a deposit takes much longer, and by the time buyers finally reach the 100k milestone, property prices and interest rates have usually climbed higher. What used to be a clear path toward homeownership has turned into a treadmill where savings struggle to outpace inflation and rent growth. High rent not only delays saving, it also undermines mortgage approval. Lenders assess monthly outgoings to determine affordability, and large rent payments reduce the disposable income they consider available for future mortgage repayments. Even buyers with a 100k deposit may appear high risk if their spending ratio leaves little room for rate fluctuations or unexpected expenses. This creates a cruel paradox. Those paying high rent reliably for years can still be denied a mortgage because this system judges them unable to manage similar payments on a home they would actually own. The barrier isn't just financial, it's structural. Furthermore, rising rental competition adds instability. With more would-be buyers trapped in renting cycles, landlords can raise rents further, forcing tenants into frequent moves and additional costs like deposits and agent fees. Each relocation eats into savings, wiping out months of progress toward ownership. The result is a generational trap. People capable of saving tens of thousands are perpetually set back by a market designed to prioritize returns over residence. For many, a 100k deposit is not a victory. It's a fleeting lifeline, constantly eroded by the rising tide of rent. Number 9. Property type limits and hidden quality gaps. A 100k deposit might sound like a ticket to choice, but in reality, it often confines buyers to smaller, older, or lower quality properties. The gap between what people hope to buy and what their deposit can actually secure is widening fast. In many parts of the UK, particularly the southeast, 100k may only buy access to one-bedroom flats, leasehold apartments, or properties in need of major renovation. These homes frequently come with short leases, high service charges, and maintenance problems that add thousands of pounds to yearly costs. A buyer who spends all their savings on the deposit often has little left for repairs or upgrades, leaving them trapped in homes that depreciate faster than they can improve them. The issue also lies in the type of stock dominating the market. New builds, while modern, carry hefty price premiums and restrictive ownership clauses. Many developers sell leasehold flats with rising ground rents or management fees, creating hidden long-term liabilities. On the other hand, older properties may seem cheaper, but often conceal structural issues, outdated wiring, insulation gaps, or dampness that require immediate attention. The 100k deposit may secure the keys, but the upkeep and running costs can quickly spiral beyond expectation. Buyers frequently underestimate these burdens, only to face financial stress within the first year of ownership. Regional differences magnify this challenge. In London, a 100k deposit might barely reach the bottom rung of the housing ladder, while in northern cities it may secure a modest but decent home. Yet even there, the rise in investor demand has inflated prices for desirable property types. First-time buyers face the harsh reality that their deposit defines not just affordability, but quality of life. The market no longer rewards saving alone. It demands compromise on size, comfort, and long-term sustainability. Number 10. Market volatility and fear of negative equity. Even with a 100k deposit, many potential buyers hesitate to purchase because the UK housing market feels increasingly unstable. After years of rapid growth, analysts now warn of a potential correction as high interest rates, slowing wage growth, and reduced buyer demand cool the market. According to Nationwide, average house prices have already dipped by around 3 to 4% compared to last year, and some forecasts suggest further declines through 2025. For a buyer stretching to afford a $500,000 home, even a small fall in prices could erase a significant chunk of their equity. The fear of negative equity, owing more on your mortgage than your home is worth, has returned to the public consciousness for the first time since the 2008 financial crisis. Economic uncertainty adds to the pressure. Rising unemployment in certain sectors, persistent inflation, and geopolitical instability all make long-term borrowing feel risky. Buyers are cautious about committing to large mortgages when future interest rates and property values remain unpredictable. A 100k deposit may provide a sense of security, but it cannot protect against market swings that could wipe out gains overnight. Financial advisors increasingly recommend leaving a buffer rather than putting every penny into the down payment. Yet many feel forced to do so just to compete for limited housing stock. This environment has shifted sentiment from optimism to caution. Buyers delay decisions, sellers hold out for higher prices, and the market slows further, creating a feedback loop of uncertainty. Those with deposits feel ready but reluctant, aware that one wrong timing decision could cost tens of thousands. The modern property market no longer rewards bravery alone. It demands strategic patience. A 100k deposit once symbolized freedom, but in 2025, it often represents risk exposure in an unpredictable and fragile housing system. The harsh reality of today's housing market is that a 100k deposit, once a symbol of security and success, no longer guarantees a home. Every part of the system, from inflated property prices to strict lending rules, has shifted the goalposts. Rising interest rates, stagnant wages, and suffocating rents have eroded the true power of savings. What used to be a confident down payment now feels like a fragile lifeline in a market defined by scarcity and inequality. Even disciplined savers find themselves trapped between rising living costs and homes that drift further out of reach each year. Yet within this uncertainty lies awareness, and that awareness is power. Understanding how these forces work helps buyers adapt, exploring new regions, timing their purchases wisely, and refusing to overextend financially. Home ownership in the UK isn't impossible, but it demands sharper strategy, not just larger savings. The rules have changed, and so must the approach. If you're saving for your first home, or watching these trends unfold around you, share your thoughts below. Has the 100k barrier lost its meaning? Subscribe for more honest breakdowns of UK housing, economics, and finance. And join the discussion shaping tomorrow's reality.